Namo Amida Buddha. The Four Profound Thoughts Which Turn the Mind Towards Amida Dharma by Reverend Joshua Adrian Celia. Samsara is suffering. 3. Contemplating the suffering of the human realm. As I previously explained in the first section, life in human form is most desirable and does not contain the extreme pain of hells, pretas, and animal realms. However, humans have their own difficulties and specific sufferings. Generally speaking, these are called the 8 sufferings, namely birth, old age, disease, death, encountering what is unpleasant, separation from what is pleasant, not getting what one wants, and the suffering associated with the 5 aggregates or skandhas. Some of these appear in other realms of existence too, but here I will explain them in relation to the human realm. 1. The suffering of birth. According to the Buddha Dharma, life in human form starts at the moment of conception, when the consciousness of a human being in the intermediate state, Gandharva, enters the cell formed after the union of male sperm with female egg, ovum. From that moment until birth, the new being experiences various kinds of sufferings associated with the different embryonic stages, which are described in some sutras, like, for example, the Sutra on Entry into the Womb and various treatises. Whatever the mother eats or drinks, or if she passes through various painful or stressful situations, can influence the unborn baby. Also, when the pregnancy reaches full term, the baby and mother too experiences various sufferings associated with birth. Some can die at that moment, but even those who survive might go through suffering very similar with dying when they exit the womb. Nobody ever came into this world smiling, but in a river of tears and crying. Also, birth is the first step to death, as everything which is born must die. We may have the impression of growth and maturing, but what we do in fact is make another step towards death, another rebirth, another death, rebirth, death, ad infinitum. The very fact that we were born is a sign that we have not escaped samsara yet, and if we do not use this precious human life well, our present birth will be just another cause for rebirth in the lower realms. 2. The suffering of old age. When becoming old, our bodies deteriorate. The hair becomes white, wrinkles appear all over our face and forehead, and we become unattractive. When becoming old, physical strength and vigor deteriorate, and it becomes more and more difficult to sit or stand, walk, talk, or to do various activities. When becoming old, our senses deteriorate too. Our eyes cannot see well, and our ears cannot hear as they used to when we were young. We also lose memory and other mental faculties. When becoming old, we cannot enjoy our sense objects. We have difficulty in eating, drinking, and cannot find happiness any more in desirable objects. Seeing as our body and mind deteriorate as we approach death, ordinary beings which are attached to form cannot be happy. Shakyamuni Buddha said in the Lalitavasitara Sutra, quote, "As aging progresses and we pass a certain point, we are like a tree struck by lightning, withered by old age like a terrible decrepit house. O sage, speak quickly about an escape from old age. Age enfeebles the masses of men and women, as a windstorm strips vine from a grove of sal trees. Age steals our vigor, skill, and strength. It is as though we are stuck in mud. Age makes attractive bodies unattractive. Age steals our glory and our strength. Age steals our happiness and subjects us to insults. Age takes our vigor. Age begets death." End quote. Jetson Milarepa also said, quote, 1. You stand yourself up as if pulling a peg from the ground. 2. You creep along as though you were stalking a bird. 3. You sit down like a sack being dropped. When these 3 things happen and come together, Granny, you're a sad old woman whose illusory bodies wasting away. 1. From the outside your skin hangs in wrinkles. 2. From the inside protrude bones where flesh and blood have shrunk. 3. In between you're stupid, deaf, blind, and dazed. When these three things come together, Granny, your face frowns with ugly wrinkles. 1. Your clothes are so ragged and heavy. 2. Your food and drink is insipid and cold. 3. You sit on your mat propped up with skins on 4 sides. When these three things come together, Granny, you're like a realized yogi being trampled by men and dogs. End quote. The suffering of disease. Disease, when it occurs, changes our body's appearance, making it ugly. Disease means lack of equilibrium in our internal elements and causes us to experience physical and mental pain. Disease makes us lose our desire for objects that we previously enjoyed, or if we still desire some things, we might not be allowed to enjoy them because it would delay our recovery or worsen our condition. Also, our movement is limited and we cannot do the activities we like. Disease can force us to take medicine, food, or drink that we find repulsive, and we might need to accept painful and violent therapies like surgical interventions, powerful drugs, and so on. Disease makes us lose our vital energy, and if it is a terminal disease, it will cause tremendous pain to us and our relatives. Indeed, who among ordinary people can accept a terminal illness with 100% serenity? More than that, some become frightened of death even when they are slightly ill, while others commit suicide because they cannot bear the pain or desperation after being left alone by their dear ones. People who are very sick cannot take care of themselves, so they constantly need to ask for the help of others, which may come or may not, or may last for a while until their friends or relatives are tired of taking care of them. Usually, very few are capable of giving constant support in such times of crisis, and the world's hospitals and asylums are filled with sick or old people abandoned by their dear ones. Shakyamuni Buddha said in the Lalavitavistara Sutra, quote, "Hundreds of illnesses and the pain of rampant disease afflict us, just as humans oppress wild animals, regard the beings overwhelmed by old age and disease, and quickly speak about escape from suffering. In deep winter, wind and great blizzards take the vigor from the grasses, shrubs, trees, and herbs. In the same way, disease takes the vigor out of living beings. It breaks down their faculties, physical appearance, and strength. It will drain a great fortune and wealth and grain to the last. Disease constantly humiliates living beings. It harms them and is contemptuous of beauty. It torments them like the sun beating down from the sky." End quote. The suffering of death. Death is suffering because we're attached to our bodies and we identify with them. Death is suffering because we are separated from relatives and friends. Death is suffering because we are separated by the objects of our desires like our property, wealth, and various possessions. Death is suffering because when dying we might feel various pains in the body and mind. Shakyamuni Buddha said in the Lalavitavistara Sutra, quote, "You die and pass on to another life, and in so doing you are forever separated from people who are beautiful and beloved. Like a leaf fallen from a tree or the current of a river, you will never return and meet them again. Death makes the powerful weak. Death takes you away as a river carries away a log. People go alone, unaccompanied, and with no companion, powerless because their karma has its effects. Death seizes myriad living beings, as sea monsters seize swarms of creatures, as an eagle seizes a snake, or a lion an elephant, as fire takes hold of grass, trees, and swarming creatures." End quote. He also said in the larger sutra, quote, "The reality of birth and death is such that the sorrow of parting is mutually felt by all generations. A father cries over the deaths of his children. Children cry over the deaths of their father and mother. Brothers, sisters, husbands, and wives mourn each other's death. According to the basic law of impermanence, whether death will occur in order of seniority or in the reverse order is unpredictable. All things must pass. Nothing stays forever. Few believe this, even if someone teaches and exhorts them, and so the stream of birth and death continues everlastingly." End quote. As few become aware in due time of the reality of death and impermanence, most people do not strive to follow the Buddha Dharma, but on the contrary do even more evil actions during their lives, and so when death arrives they experience various pains and fears. Hallucinations may occur even before their actual death, which are signs of their future rebirth in one of the lower realms. Also, when they finally die, various apparitions of the intermediate state, or bardo, manifest before their senses. But because they have no faith in Amida Dharma or in any Buddha, no one can protect them, and so they are left at the mercy of their evil karma. 5. The suffering of encountering what is unpleasant. Unpleasant circumstances are of various types, causing us fear and pain. Meeting with enemies, we fear that we may be hurt, insulted, dominated, punished, or even killed. Meeting with unfavorable situations, we fear we may lose our wealth and possessions. Being caught up in rivalry of any kind, we fear others will be more successful than us, while we are left with nothing. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna said, quote, amassing wealth, watching over it and making it grow will wear you out. Understand that riches bring unending ruin and destruction. End quote. Jetson Milarepa also said, quote, in the beginning wealth makes you happy and envied, but however much you have, it never seems enough. In the middle, miserliness tightens its knot around you. You can't bear to spend it on offerings or charity. Your wealth attracts enemies and negative forces, and everything you've gathered gets used up by others. In the end, wealth's a demon that puts your life in danger. How frustrating to just look after wealth for your enemies. End quote.